Welcome to John Martin Talks, where we battle ignorance and apathy daily. The growing ignorance of just how special this experiment we call the United States of America is, and the apathy that we can't or won't do anything and everything to save her. Well, good morning to you out there. Of course, if you're watching us on a podcast, it may be anytime, day or night, but we start out every day live at 10 o'clock here on multiple networks. So I want to give a quick shout out to a few of them. One, of course, is the ever reliable Citizens for Trump and the appropriately named Handcuffs for Hillary. We welcome you to the show. You're here every day, loyal listeners. I really appreciate your comments. But today, ladies and gentlemen, we have a brand new group joining us, and it is Deplorable Resistance. So welcome to JMT, John Martin Talks and Excluded Network, Deplorable Resistance. I hope we live up to your expectations. So to our new viewers out there, let me just introduce a few things here. First, I am John Martin, and I do most, if not all, of the talking. We got Jay in the back. You will hear him from time to time. And this, by the way, is my psychic sidekick, Billy Bob Bass. Now, he keeps me on track because sometimes I get, this old country boy has a few loose rocks in his head and he be rattling around and all that, and I got to get kind of fish slapped, if you will. I whisper to the fishes. I'm also called the old salty dog. And this red you see on my face, I don't need a nurse. My blood pressure's not high yet, but it probably will be before the show's over. But I grew up commercial fishing and other things, and I still do a lot of that, and you'll see that as you just hang in there. But Billy Bob has a Twitter handle, by the way. We're both a couple of Twitter twats here. His is at Billy Bob Bass 1, and mine is at John Martin Talks. So welcome to the show, everybody, no matter where you are. And and one other little thing. I've started to get people that sending me in pictures and making comments and things like that. I appreciate that, and I'm trying to use some of the memes you send me in on not only on my Facebook page but within the show itself. So keep sending them. I really appreciate it, and we will respond to you as best we can because we've got growing numbers, and I greatly appreciate it. And if you want to see the memes and stuff, by the way, the best way to do that is to go to John Martin Talks Facebook page directly, like it, and share it with others because we post articles there. We stream some different types of videos as well as post a bunch of memes, and I think you'll get a big kick out of them and you'll enjoy sharing them with you. So welcome to the JMT family, and I am just honored and thrilled to be a little small part of yours, and I don't take that lightly. Well, one of the things, if you're new to the show, we do try to every day is kind of have a word or phrase of the day. And today our word is quarrel. A heated argument or disagreement, this is the definition, typically about a trivial issue and between people who are usually on good terms. Interesting. So, this first article comes to you from Fox News. And my subtitle to it would be, A Quarrel Worth Having? A Trivial Response to a Serious Issue. Cory Booker introduced a Senate bill on slavery reparations, according to Fox News. Senator Cory Booker on Monday introduced a bill that would study the possibility of reparations. Typical progressives, doesn't actually do anything. It studies it and costs you a lot of money. Kind of like the Mueller report, right? How it studied Russian collusion, which there wasn't any, and they knew it wasn't. But it didn't really do anything, right, except disrupt everything, cause a bunch of problems. But Cory Booker on Monday introduced a bill that would study the possibility of reparations for descendants of slaves, embracing a push that recently has caught the interest of fellow 2020 Democratic presidential candidates. And we're going to actually talk about a few of those in various stories. And Jay reminded me that, because the other day our word for the day was to be, or phrase was to be or not to be. We're going to be talking about a lot of B's today, man. Booker, Beto, Bernie, Biden. I mean, a lot of B's coming out in it today. Buttiegieg, or whatever he calls his name. And that's another thing. I got to apologize up front. First of all, I'm not apologizing for the fact that I am probably the least politically correct person you will ever meet, man. I am an equal opportunity offender. That is one of my goals, to be seriously entertaining, and kind of like how South Park, that tells you a lot. I like South Park. That I'm not prejudiced against anyone, man. I will will bash the hell out of you. It don't matter who you are. So, you know, it's not a family show, although your kids could certainly learn a history lesson from here, because I'm also a history major, by the way, from the great University of Florida. But, you know, so these Democratic candidates have locked onto this. Spartacus, of course, Cory Booker, who, you know, has clearly been oppressed his whole life, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. I mean, I feel for this guy. There's very few people have been beat down so far as Cory Booker. I kid and jest a little bit. Sarcasm is a little part of my deal as too. But I would ask Mr. Booker or anybody else of reparations when they say they hadn't done enough yet. Well, you know, there's a lot of things I could list, but one number just jumps out at me, the number 500,000. 500,000. What does that number mean in reparations? Well, that's the conservative estimate of the people that died during our U.S. Civil War. 500,000, the most of any. That's basically the given figure of that. So was that not enough? Was that not enough? I mean, I know you want to get paid in cash and all that, but, you know, people, all races suffered in that. Everybody who, I mean, there was nothing that came out of that good except for a united nation and freedom and no longer slavery. But everything else was pain and suffering, brother. I can tell you that for a fact. I mean, study history, for God's sakes. The senator from New Jersey said Monday that this bill is a way of addressing head-on the persistence of racism, white supremacy, and implicit racial bias in our country. So his bill, if he comes up with, you know, he's just studying it now. We're going to study it, you know, and then we'll come up with this. He'll come up with some kind of Green New Deal or whatever. I don't know what it would be. The Black New Deal. I don't know, man. But how in the world? Now I can understand that there, you know, for me to just give a caveat here. Slavery is horrendous, man. I'm not trivializing the issue of, I just want to make that clear. This issue is not trivial. His solution to it is really trivial because it does nothing, absolutely nothing. And so I wonder how. Let's just assume that you could actually do reparations, that you came to a conclusion, and there's a myriad of controversies that we'll touch on a few of them. But, you know, how would that actually end? How would that end persistent racism? So if racism exists, and it absolutely does, there is no question about it. It exists across the board. People have been racist against each other from the beginning of time, and black folks have suffered more, especially in the United States, from it than any other group. I don't think there's much doubt about that, although they're not exclusive to it, without a doubt. And there have been white people who suffered too, like the Irish, for instance, that kind of thing. But I think, at least in my humble opinionated fact, the blacks probably have suffered the most. But, you know, what at this point of that, what difference does that make, one over the other? But think about it. How does it stop racism if it still exists? I think we've eliminated institutional racism. I really do. But you cannot legislate what's in a man's heart. There's just no way. In fact, if you try, it will probably make the person more racist. And so white supremacy, you know, this idea, are there white supremacists in this country? Yeah, absolutely there are. There are supremacists. Are there Muslim supremacists in this country? Yeah. Are there black supremacists in this country? Absolutely. Do white supremacists, you know, do they have a history of violence against other races? No question about that. But first of all, they were all Democrats. But we'll talk about that more in a minute. But who is running on the white supremacy party right now? I mean, you could say, okay, President Trump, he's the worst racist in the history of the country. He's a white supremacist and all that. And I would tell you right now, and of course, a lot of you are new listeners, so just hang in there with me, because sometimes I say something and you go, well, I got to change the channel. Just bear with me. I will explain it. But let me just tell you something that many people have listened to already know, but you new ones might not know this. So I'm always trying to educate you. President Donald J. Trump is without a doubt the worst racist in the history of the presidency. Yes, I said that. Now, do you know why I said that? Because he sucks at it. He's terrible at it. He's the worst racist. He's the worst white supremacist in history because he sucks at it. He's terrible at it. Because what white supremacist, what racist SOB worth their own salt Would have black unemployment at an all-time low, would have black home business, home ownership at an all-time high, black business ownership 400% higher, and that was like a year ago, so it's probably even more. Hispanics, all-time low. I mean, what white supremacist, racist son of a gun would do that? So, yeah, Donald Trump is the worst racist ever because he absolutely sucks at it. I hope that makes sense to you. So, moving on. It will bring together, of course, this is according to Fox News and Cory Booker, it will bring together the best minds to study the issue and propose solutions. That would be interesting. That will finally begin to right the economic scales of past harms and make sure we are a country, according to Booker, where all dignity and humanity is affirmed. Now, again, so 500K wasn't enough. That wasn't enough to affirm dignity, right? I mean, give me a break. Civil rights struggle, how about that? How about the fact that, that all the pain and suffering that went into it by races? I mean, there were white people. What did Martin Luther King famously say? That basically our times will be judged more not by the evil that men do, but by the good people that do nothing. And there were a lot of people that did nothing, but make no mistake about it. And I know because I'm an old Southern boy and I've seen it firsthand. I've heard the stories. There were a lot of courageous white folks, I hate to say it, old Captain Whitebread here, I'm out there on a limb, but there were a lot of courageous white people that joined hands, locked arms with black folks in bravery and courage and overcame, a tremendous burden that was placed on them in the South. There's no doubt about it. I don't say that with any great glee as far as the history, although we've overcome it, and we're still overcoming. I'm not saying that there aren't ramifications from everything. I mean, it's going to take some time. Have we gone far enough? No. Have we gone far? Absolutely. But let me just ask Mr. Booker here, as one privileged guy to another, because, I think, Cory, man, you talk about privilege, man. I wish my white privilege, if I've got any white privilege, it pales in comparison to Mr. Booker's privilege, because, I mean, I got to say, I'm a bit envious. This dude, in case you don't know it, this Cory Booker, Spartacus, this guy that has been so a victim of racism and oppression, is a graduate from Stanford University, from Yale University. He's a Rhodes Scholar, and his parents were executives at IBM. I mean, the struggle is real, brother. I'm with you. I mean, give me a break, man. I mean, this guy is so far. Is there a lot of black racism, racist against black folks in this country? Has there been a history of it? No doubt about it. But this dude's not a victim of it. I mean, oh, wow. People of any race would be overjoyed to have the advantages. And I'm not saying he hasn't earned it, by the way. I'm not saying it was given to him, but you can hardly claim that you've been held back. I mean, what is he saying? I guess he would be saying, he would probably argue, knowing Cory like I do, that if they hadn't held me back, man, I would probably be emperor of the world right now. I don't know, man. I mean, how much more privilege can you get than he did? The measure is a Senate companion, this bill that Booker's producing, introduced by the House of Representatives in January by Representative Sheila Jackson Lee of Texas. Now, one thing I know about Sheila, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I don't think she's a Rhodes Scholar. I just don't. Just based on my passage. But if I could get old Sheila, I'd love to come on the show, Sheila, because I want to ask, when you talk about reparations and quarreling, you must have a lot of inner demons in quarreling for yourself, because think about it. Your parents, man, must have been really cruel. I don't know. They must have been really cruel, because they named you Sheila. That's a woman's name, obviously. Jackson Lee. Two of the most noted Civil War Confederate heroes, Stonewall Jackson and General Lee. I mean, think about it. She's like beating herself up. Pooh, you ever had to make the kids hit yourself? I had big brothers, man. They made me hit myself all the time. She's probably like, is she battling? Is she more Jackson or more Lee today? I don't know. But man, I just know, I don't know much, but I know she ain't no Rhodes Scholar. which if passed, talk about this law, this combined effort between Spartacus and General Lee, which if passed into law would set up a commission to study the impact of slavery. Now you got to love that, right? So we need to study the impact of slavery. Let me save you a little time and money on that. The impact of slavery was, in a word, horrendous. It was horrendous. There's no denial here, man. Slavery of any kind is horrendous. And where is it being practiced right now? You know, there's still black slavery going on in this world. A big part of, probably more people enslaved, more Africans, not African Americans, but more people of color are being enslaved right now in Africa than ever before. And who's doing that? Of course, it's the religion of peace. It's the religion of peace. Check it out. Google it. But, you know, remember, Google is of the devil. But slavery was horrendous. I mean, there is no way to sugarcoat it. It was terrible. But there's no way, you cannot make up for it by simply, think about it. If what you're really saying is that blood was not enough, but money is. I mean, that is, to me, actually thinking that you could overcome the impacts of slavery by simply making it rain on somebody, in a way, and maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think I am, is kind of an insult to people that actually suffered it, wouldn't you think? And it goes on to say, and this study is going to solve continued discrimination against black Americans. How? How is that going to do? If you first of all, it is going to stir up the biggest can of worms, which is really what they want. Because the Democratic Party, let me just tell you right now, here's the Democratic Party's playbook, period. They get groups of people together that may, in other circumstances, hate each other or certainly not work together. They get them all pissed off. They divide them up into little encampments. They get them all pissed off, and then they unify them behind a common boogeyman. Usually it's the Republican Party. And now they've got the Cheeto president, Donald J. Trump, that he is the worst boogeyman ever. And he don't really suck at that. He is pretty good boogeyman when it comes down to it, because President Trump, man, he liked to needle him a little bit, you know. One thing about it, President Trump, man, he's a street fighter. He's a street fighter from New York. And if he's not, see, this is the thing, I haven't said this in a while, but if I say it, it kind of bears repeating. People don't understand Donald Trump. I lived and worked in Manhattan for over 4 years in the mid-'80s. I get Donald Trump because I've worked with people up there, the New Yorkers, and I love New Yorkers, man. I mean, they're some of the strongest, hardiest people out there, which is a crying shame they elected a weakling like the Comrade de Blasio, but that's another story. But I can tell you one thing about people from New York. If you hit them, they're going to hit you twice as hard. And it don't matter if it's with a fight or a fight of words or whatever. So Donald Trump, to really understand him, go back and look at the debates when the gal from Fox, man, that, you know, didn't know what blackface was racist or not. I'm trying to think of her name. Anyway, she's a lily white gal. When she said, "You called all women fat pigs," and Donald Trump looked right at her and said, "No, I called Rosie O'Donnell a fat pig." See, that's the thing. He doesn't call all women fat pig. He singled out, because it had nothing to do with women. It had to do with Rosie O'Donnell trying to throw a lob or grenade at Donald Trump, and he dropped the mother of all bombs on that fat pig. That is the New York way. That is just the way it is, man. But so I'm going to ask this question. How would reparations stop continued racism? I can understand and get my mind around that in theory. The working reality of it is impossible. But in theory, yeah, you could say, okay, we could compensate you for the loss of something. But stopping continued racism? How? If anything, because I said before, just earlier in the show, you can't legislate what's in a man's heart. You can pass every bill you want to pass. You cannot legislate what's in a man's heart. So in order to overcome racism, you've got to, it takes education. It takes a willingness to change on both sides if there's, you know, companion racism or whatever. But one thing about it, reparations is not going to stop continued racism. If someone's racist and you make them pay for it, that's probably going to piss them off more. And they're going to hate more and justify you know, unjustifiable behavior even more. But it goes on to say, and make recommendations on separation proposals for descendants of slaves. Just slaves, I would ask. So or if you're officially a slave, do you have to be a black slave? I guess so. Well, let me just ask, in fairness, so we want to be fair, and diversity, and we want equal outcomes and all that. How about genocide? How would, you know, if a whole race of people is literally systematically hunted down and killed by a government, wouldn't that potentially be something for reparations? Who am I talking about? I'm talking about Native Americans. And they go, yeah, you're right, man. Yeah, we'll get reparations for them too. There's a couple of little problems there. And I'm not, if anybody deserves reparations, it probably would be Native Americans, right? There's no, I mean, I don't see how you could really argue that. We did give them the casinos, but hey, that's another deal. Guess who was a part of this genocide, Corey? It was African Americans. Have you ever heard of the Buffalo Soldiers? Let me give you a little education here, Mr. Booker. The Buffalo Soldiers were a group of elite black, former slave, African Americans, however you want to label them, just the truth, elite former slaves freed after the Civil War that were part of the U.S. Cavalry. And their mission was not to hunt down old white dudes, which is maybe what they should have done, I don't know. But they went out and systematically were one of the most effective soldiers at killing. They were literally a killing machine. They became infamous and famous for it. And guess who they was killing? They was killing Liawapa, Elizabeth Warren's people, the Native Americans. So how's this going to work? Are you going to say, so at one point, Elizabeth Warren, she's proven herself that she's like the whitest woman on the planet. She got paperwork proving it. But she's in it. So she's going to give you reparations because she's lily white. And then you're going to have to turn around and give her reparations because she's Cherokee. Even though the Cherokee people said, no, I'm afraid, sorry about your luck, but you ain't getting no casino check. We sure for that. But anyway, how's this going to work out? It's just crazy. The legislation was first introduced 30 years ago by then Representative John Conyers of Michigan. Now, he's an African American, and he served forever. I think he was like one of the mates on the Ark. I'm not sure. He served up there for like ever. But what did he do when Mr. Conyers was given, when I say given, I'm not saying he didn't earn it, but he was given opportunity, he rose all the way up to U.S. Congressman, right? Now, what did he do with his position of authority? Did he reach out? He did reach out, and he helped, I suppose, if sexual assault is helping. I mean, the guy left in disgrace because it came out that he's one of these people that we taxpayers bailed out of his sexual assaults with his own staff, many of them African-American women. I mean, so it gets crazy. And just FYI, when they got rid of Conyers, who replaced Conyers? Anybody know? Anybody know? You know Billy Bob? I don't think even Billy Bob. Representative Conyers was replaced by another woman of slightly different color, Rashida Tlaib, the one that said we're going to impeach that mother. Talking about the president now. She's class. She's got that seat now. Now, she's the one that said we got to, she didn't say it because she believes in actions over words. I give her that. She literally wiped Israel off the map. Remember that? She took a Post-it note and put Palestine over it in her office in Congress. She literally wiped Israel off the map. Every Iraqi, death to America, every Iranian's dream, right? Not all Iranians, of course, but every mullah in Iran. That's why I say death to, every time you say Iran, you got to death to America. It just kind of comes out the same way. But, and by the way, we talked about this yesterday. We'll probably update you on it tomorrow. They're having elections literally as we speak in Israel, and they're going to see if they're going to make Israel great again by keeping Bibi. If you're listening to me over there, I would vote for Benjamin Netanyahu if I could. That would be my choice. But back to the article. Since slavery in this country, this is Cory Booker, since slavery in this country, we've had overt policies fueled by white supremacy and racism that have oppressed African Americans economically for generations. He went on to say many of our bedrock domestic policies, Cory Spartacus Booker, that have ushered in millions of Americans into the middle class has systematically excluded blacks through practices like the GI Bill, discrimination, and redlining. Well, let me just tell you, he's right. Cory Booker is absolutely right. But all of that he just said was brought to you by the Democratic Party. So, all of that was brought to you. So maybe we need reparations to be subjective to just Democratic white supremacists. Because there really weren't any white supremacist Republicans. Oh, what? Did you know, and this is from Dinesh D'Souza, and I'm telling you, if you've not watched Dinesh D'Souza's film and his work, he is unbelievable. I've had the pleasure of meeting him on several occasions. I'd love to get him on the show sometime. Dinesh, you got an open invitation. But did you know that at the start of the Civil War, let me just ask you this way, how many Republicans, how many of these nasty old racist Republicans actually owned slaves at the time of the Civil War when it started in 1860? How many? Well, here is a white supremacist dog whistle. 0! It was 0! There were none, Corey. So, maybe it should just be Democrats that pay these reparations. I don't know. That would be a quick flood to the Republican Party. But instead of quarreling, I'm always trying. One thing, if you've watched my show any time, you know that I make fun of a lot, but at the end of the day, I'm always trying to help. Oh, and if you're wondering what's on my coffee cup, it's given to me by my lovely wife, who is of mixed race, by the way, and owed reparations. But that's another story. It says, I want you on my side. Look at that right there of the wall. And it's got a little picture of Donnie J. Trump on it, man. But, instead of quarreling, as I'm trying to help, let's talk about the common plight of the working class, Corey. Because you're on to something here as far as what happened. Because, yeah, after the, before the civil rights, and this is I don't talk about this much, but somebody needs to talk about it. One of the unintended consequences of desegregation was it basically destroyed the economy of black neighborhoods and black-owned businesses, because people could then shop, because people were scared to go out and they wanted blacks on, whites only, that kind of thing. So there was a lot more money centered in the black community. I'm not saying desegregation was bad, just one of the unforeseen consequences was it kind of destroyed a lot of black-owned businesses. So, we got ghosts in here. In case you're wondering, that's my paddle I helped Donald Trump paddle through the swamp with. It's all right, as long as it don't hit me over the head, I guess I'll be all right. But then it might straighten me out, man. I guess if Billy Bob can't straighten me up, old paddle might. But anyway, it's alive in here. But the common plight of the working class, back to that. So there was a destruction of jobs, right, in the black economy. Guess what's happened, and one of the reasons why the Rust Belt, if you want to call it that, has voted for Donald Trump? Because there was a destruction of jobs for a lot of white working middle class people, and blacks as well, brought to you by the Democratic Party and their NAFTA and all that. How about the destruction of families, which is a real issue in the African American community? There's no question about that. But when a man can't earn a living, women don't want to marry a guy that's broke, and so they end up having babies out of wedlock. That is happening to, guess what? Because these factors aren't racial. They're happening to blacks and whites and people of all colors all across America. The middle class, the working class people are being hollowed out. And guess what happened to the black community when that happened? Not only did you have the loss of fathers, but you had crack cocaine come into it and finish tearing people apart. Well, what's happening right now? You've got the opioid epidemic, which is a higher percentage of Rust Belt people and Southern people in some of these Appalachian states happen to be white bread. Okay? Like Captain Whitebread's going to speak up for them. My point being that a lot of what happened to the African American community to put them in the state that we find themselves, that Trump is trying to fix, by the way, what do you got to lose? He's right about that, has happened to white working middle class people as well now. The same tactics have been used, and it's all brought to you by the Democratic Party, sir. So maybe instead of quarreling about trivial studying, maybe we should talk about the real issues that are happening, which none of you, by the way, none of you bees or jackasses on jackasses, which is what I call the Democrats, because they Green New Deal, they all signed off on it, so they can't ride a train or a plane, right? They got to ride a jackass, right, to get to these debates. So that's what we need to talk about, but none of you jackasses are running on that. None of you. You only hear this kind of stuff, the unvarnished truth, here at the old JMT show. Let me check my time. This is just an important story, man. Besides Booker, I'm not going to read that part. Anyway, it's a long list of people who have signed off on it. All these different people who, basically all the Democratic candidates, man. So what's going on with this? Democratic guilt, I guess. Obama, maybe one thing about Obama, should he pay reparations to himself? Because his mother's white and his daddy was black. And as far as I know, his daddy wasn't a slave because he never came over from Africa, from Kenya, right? So Obama, the first black president, I think he's more the first gay president, but that's another story. Like Bill Clinton was the first black president, right? It's kind of the same thing. Obama, how would he get paid reparations? Because his father was never a slave. And his mother was an old white bread chick from Kansas, of all places. So, I guess Obama going to be left out. I'm sorry about your luck, Obama. You're going to be left out in the cold, man. But several of them asked specifically about Jackson Lee's arrest. Several of these candidates for 2020, Bill, during a conference last week at Al Sharpton National Network. First of all, can we get, before we start talking about reparations, can you just get Al to pay his taxes? I mean, the dude owes at least $4 million, right? But you think about this. I said the definition at the beginning of the show. Quarrel, a heated argument or disagreement, typically about trivial issue, not saying slavery is a trivial issue, between people who are usually on good terms. We need to be on good terms, but we need to actually have a conversation about something that will work. Like I just described to you about the plight of African Americans brought to by the Democratic Party and the plight of white Rust Belt Americans brought to you by the Democratic Party. That's something worthy of a conversation. But this study that he's trying to do, man, is worthless. It might make you feel pissed off or feel good or whatever, but it will accomplish nothing. Okay, on with the next story here. And this is coming to you from CNN. See, so I brought Fox, CNN. They didn't investigate it because we know they don't investigate, even though they have a website that says CNN investigates. My subtitle for this is Quarreling with God. And that is trivial indeed. I mean, if you think about it, quarreling with God makes no sense, although I've done it a few times myself. I never said I always made sense. But this is, and as I say, I apologize ahead of time. I have a hard time with some of these names. So if I offend anyone, it's not on purpose. Maybe. We'll see. Anyway, Buttiegieg to Pence. If you get a problem with who I am, your problem is not with me. Your quarrel, sir, is with my creator. And this is the guy that's running for president. His name, as far as I can say, is Buttiegieg. And he is I don't think is he current mayor of South Bend, Indiana? I think he's former mayor of South Bend, Indiana. But as I say, this comes to you from CNN. Democratic presidential hopeful, and this is one of the B's we were talking about, Pete Buttiegieg, is on Sunday again took on Vice President Mike Pence, whose stances on LGBTQ issues have faced criticism for gay rights activists. This is all these different alphabets. I used to understand it when it was LGBT, because I kind of used an acronym, Lord God Big Tits, and it kind of helped me keep that in general. Some of us are sicker than others. Look me up, you'll see. But let me just say this in case you're just tuning into my show. When it comes to the gay rights issue and all that, man, I got a really simple policy. Open mind, closed behind. I really don't care what you do in the privacy of your own home. Just, hey, I got my own thing and it ain't that. But anyway, but he's on Pence. He said it's faced criticism from gay rights activists, saying that if Pence has a problem with who I am, I don't think Pence ever said a word to this dude, your problem is not with me. Your quarrel, sir, is with my creator. So does he even know Mike Pence? Do you think they've ever actually met? Maybe so, because Mike Pence, he was governor of Indiana. So I guess your strategy to win Indiana is bash a guy who won statewide. I mean, that sounds right. This guy's just trying to get his street creds up, his gay street creds. Because there was an article, I think, in the Daily Beast, because this dude's rising up a little bit in the polls and everything, that they said that Buttiegieg wasn't gay enough. Even though he's married to a man, he's not gay enough. So he's trying to get his street creds. So he's attacking the vice president. Because I don't think the vice president has said 2 words about this dude. I'd be surprised. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'd be shocked if Pence had said anything about Buttiegieg. But Buttiegieg, the mayor of South Bend, Indiana, made the comments while speaking at the LGBTQ Victory Fund National champagne brunch in Washington. Man, that is a mouthful. Pardon the pun. He reflected on his personal struggles with his sexuality, his decision to come out in 2015, and the fact that he is being gay is not the result, I love this part, is not the result of a personal decision. Well, let me let you in. And some of you snowflakes are going to melt when I say this. Of course it is. Of course it is. I mean, this whole idea, I'm not saying people aren't necessarily born gay. I mean, we used to have a saying when I was growing up, it said, such gay, and then say, well, if he ain't, he missed a dead-gum good chance at it, because he sure had. Anyway, I'm not a scientist, so I'm not really going to judge it, but I have no quarrel with some people maybe born predisposed to being gay. I mean, sure, I don't think there's necessarily an argument there. Or I don't really have one. My thing is this idea that you don't have a choice. Because you got a choice in everything. Especially when, we got maybe too many choices. Maybe we got more choices than the alphabet. When you got 26 different choices, I don't know. It just sounds crazy to me. But of course you have choice. You have choice even to be sexual. Or there are a few that don't. There's some that you take, well, ain't nobody going that way. Yeah, you do on the first date because whatever. But he says that if me being gay, this is Buttiegieg, was a choice, it was a choice that was made far, far above my pay grade. So I get paid to make the choice. He went on to say, and that's the thing I wish that the Mike Pences of the world would understand. If you got a problem with who I am, I guess he means gay. That's his only identity, he's gay. Your problem is not with me. Your quarrel, sir, is with my creator. It's interesting. But I get a kick, confused. Sometimes I get confused. You notice that the media and these progressive leftists especially, which are kind of in lockstep, they will challenge Christians all the time. They will challenge, like the border issues, snatching children away from their mama's bosom and all. How Christian is that? They will challenge people who have no Christian values whatsoever will challenge you on your Christian values. But they'll never challenge the religion of peace. They'll say, you got to understand, the religion of peace. Well, that religion of peace, by the way, I'm sad to note, laying all serious jokes aside, being very serious, that religion of peace killed 4 Americans yesterday in Afghanistan. 3 of our U.S. soldiers and 1 contractor were killed by a brave soul who strapped a bomb on himself in a car bomb, and blew up 4 Americans and injured a lot of us. So our thoughts and prayers are out with it. Thank you for your service. Some all gave some gave all, no doubt about it. But, 4 Americans killed by the religion of peace. But I don't think Buttiegieg's going to say a word about that. I doubt he even mentioned it. He probably doesn't even know it. But Buttiegieg's comments, I get confused about that. Comments have come hours after he made critical comments about evangelical voters' support of President Donald Trump during an appearance on Meet the Press. I love this part. He says, it's something that really frustrates me because the hypocrisy is unbelievable. Talking about how evangelicals support Donald Trump. The hypocrisy is unbelievable. He says so, and so let me just tell you, I haven't said this in a while. There's no mystery to why evangelicals support Donald Trump. It's not because they hold him up as some pillar of virtue. So I know the media and you snowflakes out there think we unwittingly, that was a word they were using for a while. I hadn't used that in a while because it didn't work. They keep using the stuff that don't work and they go move on. Climate control, climate can change. And anyway, unwittingly, that somehow we didn't know who Donald Trump was. Well, let me tell you, deplorables out there, and snowflakes and deplorables and dregs and hildebeests and everybody else. I can only speak for me, but I think I can actually speak for 1 or 2 more. A lot of us dregs and deplorables knew exactly who Donald Trump was. We didn't look at him as some pillar of virtue. We looked at a guy who was a billionaire playboy that knew where all the bodies were in the swamp and knew where the plug was and how to pull it. And that's what we voted for Donald Trump was. And the reason why evangelicals, and this is just my opinionated fact, but it's a fact nonetheless, evangelicals don't support Donald Trump because they think he's like, on the right hand of God, so to speak. They support him because he believes in the U.S. Constitution. And he believes in religious liberty and freedom. And that he doesn't put the government, that he doesn't use government to try to hammer down people's religious practices, which has been done in the past. Evangelical Christians, and I know that a lot of you don't believe this out there in fairy tale, fantasy, progressive, snowflake land, but Christianity has been under assault in this country for decades now by both sides of the aisle, some intentional and some just passively so. But Christians that I've talked to, and I've got a lot of friends that watch this show. I've got some reverend friends of mine that are very religious evangelical people, and I think I can speak for them in one sense. They support Trump because he supports them, and he leaves them alone and says, okay, practice your religion. I mean, give me a break. That is why it's about liberty and freedom. It's just, I mean, to think that we elected pillars of morality to presidency. When was the last time we elected a really high moral value person to be president? Really? It was Jimmy Carter. Great man, lousy president. Enough said. Here you have somebody who not only acts in a way that is not consistent, this is Buttiegieg, by the way, with anything that I hear in Scripture in church. So he's basically saying that you don't hear this about homosexuality in church. Really? I mean, yeah. If you go to one of these like churches that just invented since the 70s, that have rewritten the Bible about 10 different times, yeah, might. But the old school Bible, like the King James Version, which is a rewritten, but so it's probably even lighter than the original. There's a bunch of scriptures, and I'm not trying to, I told you I got open mind, closed behind. But I'm about truth. So this idea that the Christian Bible doesn't talk about homosexuality in a condemning way is crazy. Leviticus 18:20 King James Bible Version. Thou shalt not lie with mankind as with womankind. It's an abomination. And Timothy 1:10 King James Bible. Now I'm about to do it. I'm going to channel my inner Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez combined with Hillary Clinton and Al Sharpton, because we got to pander, right? We got to pander. I did this yesterday, so I mean no offense, but I'm just to show you that I'm as talented as Hillary Clinton and Ocasio-Cortez, so I'm going to pander a little bit here. Timothy 1:10 King James Bible. For whoremongers, for them that defile themselves with mankind, for the man stealers, for liars, for perjured persons, and if there is any, like Al Sharpton might say, any other thing that is contrary to sound doctrine. In other words, if you fit into any of those categories, you a sinner. We all sinners. So, but my point being that this ludicrous stuff, now you could argue about whether or not the country should be run that way, and the country shouldn't be run by the Bible. That's why we got the Constitution. Liberty, freedom from and for religion. Both ways, it kind of goes both ways, right? But to say that they don't preach that, well, they probably don't in that church he goes to. But during his Victory Fund speech, Buttiegieg said that while he was growing up, he wished he wasn't gay. But his marriage to his husband, Chasten Buttiegieg, has made him a better person and has brought him closer to God. The two started dating 4 years ago and got married last June. Now, see, I hope that is true. I hope what he just said and that is true. I wish him no ill will whatsoever. I don't want him to be president, but I wish him no ill will. And I hope him and Chasten or whatever his name is are happily ever after. I got no issue with that. That's you, not me. But my big issue is, why do you have to preach it? Why do you have to preach it? So Pence has a right to say something, but you don't. But anyway, so Pence has, drawn all this controversy from the left and been championed from the right because he's spoken up by his values. Pence, man, one thing about him and Donald Trump are like perfect match for each other as vice president. And that's all I mean, by the way, because Trump, man, Trump is they're both just honest. That's what I love about these guys. Trump is honest about it. I mean, he calls it what it is. Rosie O'Donnell's a fat pig. Now, some people don't like that, but he's honest. Pence is honest in a different kind of way. He's honest about what he really believes, what his moral compass is. I mean, keep in mind, this guy said that, hey, I don't go out to lunch with women without my wife with me. Because I mean, that's, and today, I mean, when he originally said that, people were like, man, that's sexist. Now he looks pretty dadgum smart, doesn't he?
I'm going to have my kids do that. I don't know why they jump on him for that.
Yeah.
I know that was my scenario when I was growing up. It was like, hey, you got to be careful, man. That's what my mom always told me is never be alone with a girl without having some other witness present unless you're planning on marrying her.
Hey,
and
there.
actually, that ended up happening.
And that's Jay, my producer in the back. And that's sound advice. I don't understand. Like I say, he looks like a genius now, does he not? I mean, so this is the bottom line on this. And this is what I would say to Mr. Buttiegieg or Buttiegieg. I don't know how to say his name. But, sir, why is it, and I would say this to gay people in general and people on the progressive left in general, why, and not all gay people. But what I've noticed is, for some reason, maybe I just don't understand it, that gay people seem to have to preach it. They got to put the sexuality in your face. You know, I mean, I don't get that. I don't get, and if, this is the big part, if that's fair, and I'm not saying you don't have a right to, don't misunderstand me. Freedom of speech means you have to hear speech you don't particularly like or it ain't free, right? But my thing, you talk about hypocrisy. Why is it that you can preach your absolute, without a doubt, right to whatever you think it is at the time, but Mike Pence and guys like him don't have that right? And why couldn't it be that both of y'all come from some deep-rooted spiritual, if you will, feelings, however you justify it? And why couldn't you actually have a debate about this, talk about this, and see where there might actually be common ground? But no, you'd say you have an absolute right to be who you are, but Mike Pence, he can't be who he needs to be restricted and vilified for it. And that's where I got a huge problem.
Because he's doing the right thing.
Quarrel. Well, and that, I agree with you, Jay, but I can also say that there could be some wiggle room in there. What my thing is, you can't talk about hypocrisy, and I hate to be quoting the Bible. Something like you that says something, that there's a book out there, I think it's the Bible, says something about looking at the stick in someone else's eye while you got like a big 2x4 in your own eye. That's my words, but anyway. All right, we're going to move on. We got a few minutes left, and I got some interesting story. I got to get to another B here. Beto, Robert Francis O'Rourke, man. And this is coming to you from the Washington Examiner. And my subheading is Quarrel with Yourself, or I'm so effing proud of myself I must apologize. Who are we talking about? We're talking about Beto O'Rourke. Beto O'Rourke hits ground truth in Iowa as enthusiasm flags. In other words, he's not quite as popular as he once seemed. He's on none other, and a viewer sent me this, so we're going to post it up. Like I said earlier, thanks for sending them in. I'm going to use as many of them as I can. But Beto is on an apology tour. we got a little thing that showed it that a listener sent me. We'll get it up there in a minute. There you go. Don't miss the Beto O'Rourke apology tour. Well, apparently a few people hadn't got the message, and they've been missing parts of his tour. Iowa City, Iowa. Beto O'Rourke saw firsthand what it's like to be just another presidential candidate during a just another jackass on a jackass town hall event Sunday afternoon, as the enthusiasm and star power he sought to generate hit ground truth in Iowa. In other words, he found out he ain't all he thinks he is. That the people in Iowa would just soon watch the corn grow. You know, maybe, I got a thing, maybe you should start holding like cornhole tournaments like they do in it. See, that's one thing. You talk about words and all that. When I first heard, like, you remember I go to a lot of football games, said, come on over to our tailgate party. We're having a big cornhole tournament. And I'm like, hey, it's kind of like that Pound Me Too movement, the hashtag Me Too. I didn't understand, because it looked like a Pound Me Too. Cornhole, I'm cornholio or whatever. I mean, I'm like, hey, I'm not really into cornhole, especially no tournament side of. But hey, I mean, words matter, and I just didn't understand. I'm still learning. O'Rourke, 46, a former Texas congressman, started 30 minutes late, and the University of Iowa Student Union ballroom remained less than half filled as the candidate gave his pitch to fewer than, wait for it, 120 students, family, and retirees before taking questions. Many of those were not committed to O'Rourke. So let me get this straight. The next JFK is drawing Trumpian numbers? Not. No. So JFK, he ain't no JFK, and he ain't no DJT, man. Because they talk about, here's what gets me, and I was at the president's inauguration, by the way. I mean, I spent my honeymoon there. That's always a secret than others. What can you say? That was my wife's idea, by the way. But anyway, we were at that, and it was a hell of a crowd. A hell of a crowd at the inauguration for Trump. And supposedly Trump was one of the biggest crowds ever. That's a lie! That's a lie! The president lied! He started out his administration with a lie! You know, but O'Rourke can have so. His event in El Paso was on par with Trump's. Bullshit. Okay, O'Rourke hasn't had, the only time he had a Trumponian crowd was during his run against Ted Cruz. He had about 50,000 people show up at a football stadium to see Beto O'Rourke. Maybe. But it could be the fact that Willie Nelson was giving a free concert in Texas. Might have had something to do with it, but it's a lie. You know, no one calls O'Rourke out on these lies. A number of attendees remarked to the Washington Examiner that O'Rourke's crowd was smaller than they anticipated. I don't know if that's possible, particularly in a city of 75,000 with a major university. The crowd was less than half the size of audience drawn by O'Rourke's rival, Senator Bernie Sanders, at a similar events in small towns. So let me just think about this, man. They're quarreling over numbers. They've been quarreling over, you know, who's at the right hand of God, Buttiegieg or Pence, and all that stuff. They're all this quarreling about sex and parenting. And, you know, how Cory Booker's like oppressed and his parents were like IBM executives, but he's oppressed. So all of this, and it gets confusing. But a viewer sent me a picture, another viewer, I thank you very much, that at least we have solved one question. And that is about Bernie Sanders. Because you're right, how'd this guy get to be who he is? So this picture, this investigative reporting we have done actually could put Bernie over the top. Because we found out exactly how Bernie was created. Can we post that picture? There you go. Bert and Ernie together equaled Bernie. I mean, the resemblance is remarkable, right? So that was sent to me by a listener, and I got to tell you, it's pretty funny to me. But as I say, some of us are sicker than others. At least we solved the Bernie creation controversy. Spectators noted that O'Rourke's campaign seemed to struggle getting out information about the event, which was awkwardly timed on Sunday afternoon. And I love this, when students are attending religious services, I hope so, participating in extracurricular activities, is that part of the alphabet soup? I don't know. Or nursing a hangover. I mean, they got, this is the article, man, not me. Or they could be just melting, right? The snowflakes, man. And I do melt some snowflakes, but let me just tell you, if I melt you, you deserve to be melted. One Iowa student even ran, I love this part right here. One Iowa student, where did he happen to chance encounter? A chance encounter with Beto. One Iowa student even ran into Beto O'Rourke in the bathroom before the event started, except the student asked him if he was there to hear O'Rourke speak. So he asked Beto if he was here to hear Beto. That's how much recognition this dude had of Beto O'Rourke. He asked Beto, "Are you here to see Beto?" Well, yeah, if I look in the mirror. I don't know. He says, this guy, his name is Matthew Rowland, man. And he might, I don't know if he intended to be comedic, but he's got a future if he just work it. I don't know about how your education works. But Mr. Rowland said, "I was in the bathroom minding my own business." Pretty good. "I was washing my hands, doing what your mama told you. And this guy asked me how it was going, and I said, good." I don't tell you, it's not necessarily the best place to campaign. You know, I'm okay. "Hey, man, how you doing?" You know, one thing I've done some campaigning. I didn't hang out in men's restrooms that much to do it. And this guy asked me how it was going, and I said, "Good. How's it going?" Going for some small talk before finding out that the man next to him in the bathroom was O'Rourke. So he found out. It sounds like that the man, wasn't bathroomly impressed with him. I don't know if that's all right. It's just a word I created. Bathroomly impressed. That's a good picture, right? Another listener sent me that one, man. I'm just saying. I mean, When I first saw Beto, I knew that dude from somewhere, and now we figured it out. During a press gaggle after the rally, O'Rourke admitted that he's noticed fewer reporters at his event since he announced his candidacy. Oh, and by the way, I meant to say this about the bathroom. Was it a portalette that they met in? Because really, if Beto O'Rourke should be using nothing but portalettes, right? And you say, why? Well, because if you're a Democrat, progressive, leftist, liberal, and you're running for president, you can't just assume there's going to be a family bathroom everywhere, right? So you can't possibly go into just a men's room, because then you're going to offend somebody in or the women's room. The best thing to do is they should have jackasses on jackasses and pull a portalette around, because they're sex neutral and they're environmentally safe. You don't have to worry. So that is the solution, by the way, and it would save a lot of plumbing problems too, and water. But this guy says, I'm becoming a better. Oh, this is what O'Rourke, this bathroom campaigner, coming to a bathroom near you, Beto O'Rourke. Maybe you see it when them towels, in the cologne and the cigar. I'm learning I'm becoming a better candidate, O'Rourke told reporters. There are fewer members of the media as we're leaving these events, he said. I like the ratio has changed a little bit. Follow this now. He says, I like that the ratio has changed a little bit as we have moved on, but I'm really struck by how kind people are, how seriously they take their responsibility to themselves and the rest of the country. Let me tell you, man, I'm not going to reread that again. I had to practice that. This guy's got some talent, because he just said a mouthful and it was more chicken shit than chicken salad. He may be qualified to be the Democratic nominee without a doubt, because I don't know what the hell he just said, but it made you feel good, didn't it? All right, man. Anyway, with candidates like South Bend Mayor Peter Buttiegieg now leading O'Rourke in the polls, you're getting beat by him. Watch your back, Beto. His youth no longer gives him an easy contrast with frontrunners, former Vice President Joe Biden and Sanders, while O'Rourke stresses how he's constantly learning on the campaign trail. Many voters find Buttiegieg's thoughtful style more attractive. I'll tell you, man, the media is in love with Mayor Buttiegieg. I don't know. But anyway, it says here that O'Rourke comes from, all this enthusiasm for O'Rourke apparently comes from his 2018 Senate bid against Cruz, where he lost by 2.6%. And I would just say, close, but no cigar, man. No offense meant to President Clinton. Let's see my time. I don't really have enough time for this next story, so we'll probably save it for tomorrow, because it's all about taxes in California. It's a shocker, man, that they're for it there, but we're going to give you that little teaser. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the show today. I hope you'll understand all the B's here. We're trying to sort out this 2020. It is tough to do. If you're new to the show, first, thank you. Glad you're here. If you want to know more about the show, you want to know a little bit more about me, there's a couple of ways to do it. You can go directly to my John Martin Talks Facebook page, like it, and share it with others. You'll get all the memes and the articles that we're commenting on there. You can go to my YouTube channel, John Martin Talks. You can see a little bit more bio about me and all at johnmartintalks.tv. And you can see all of it's one of the easier places to check out all of our previous shows, because we've been squawking and talking for a while. But thanks again to our new listeners, our new sites coming out. We're inviting more and more people. If you're out there and you're hosting a Facebook site and you're interested in having our show on it, just contact us. You can contact us through Facebook directly, and perhaps we can work things out. We can come together, right? Anyway, enjoyed it. Have a great day. But as I say, above all else, ladies and gentlemen, and I mean this from Billy Bob, all of us here at JMT and Excluded, have a blessed day.